Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nails and Beauty Talk. I am your host, Asia the Bird. Today, I have a very special guest with us today. She is a content creator. Please welcome Victoria Stafford, aka the High Fashion Fan. Hello, Victoria, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction, and thank you so much for having me.
Yes, absolutely, you're most welcome. So, I want to go ahead and get started by asking where you're originally from and tell us a little about your upbringing.
Well, I'm from Nashville. I'm a Southern girl at heart. It's where I was
Cool.
born and raised. Well, actually, I was raised in Knoxville, but I claim Nashville because that was just basically the crux of my upbringing.
Right.
I lived all over. There's not a particular place I can pinpoint that I'm from. We didn't have a lot growing up. I was raised in the projects. Um, yeah, so we kind of just had to make do with what we had. Um, And I think that Nashville has changed a lot since I've gone there. It's kind of becoming an it city, so it's always
Right.
different when I go home for the holidays. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So, I definitely want to get into your school experience. So, what has been like your school experience like in terms of like high school, college, things of that nature?
Ooh, well, school wasn't. I didn't have the best time in school, if I'm being very honest.
Hmm.
I was picked on a lot. I was
Hmm.
studious. I was dark skinned, and I had nice clothes. um, So it just didn't make for the best combination. I was very quiet.
Hmm.
I was a participant with my teachers, and kids tend to not like that. Like when you're the good student,
Right.
it kind of
Yeah.
just makes you a target. So
Hmm.
yeah, I didn't have the best time. Middle school was really tough,
Hmm.
and then high school was very hard.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't really get along with the people in my class, and we were a small class too. I went to a charter school, so I
Mm.
was second in my graduating class. So yeah, it was a very small group of people. The cliques were very tough to navigate.
Mm. I want to get into this one question. So you mentioned a few times in your TikTok that you were a fashion student at a non-fashion school. You talked about how people would downplay the workload and experience. You also mentioned a lack of relatability with other fashion students. So tell us about you being a fashion student at a non-fashion school.
Yes, so the school that I went to, it was actually like the last place I ever wanted to be. When I was actually filling out applications to go to school,
Hmm.
I was like, yeah, this is like my last resort. Because they weren't a fashion school I wanted to go, or I wanted to go to a university that had a stronger, that was known for a better program. But I actually gained so much through that. It made me more resilient.
Hmm.
But as far as like our class was also small, so there weren't that
Right.
many of us in the fashion program because the school was largely known for its engineering. So I had a lot of engineering friends, a lot of computer science friends. I'm sorry. So they just didn't really understand what it was that I did and how
Hmm.
it matters in the grand scheme of things. And I remember having so much conversations. But now I think that they do, because of me, that they do have an appreciation for fashion and what goes on in the
Hmm.
fashion space and how it impacts them.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Who did you consider to be like your role models as far as fashion?
My role models, I would say Leon Talley for sure. I think there's a lot of things about his upbringing and his life and his approach that I can relate and resonate with. I absolutely loved seeing him on America's Next Top Model when I used to watch it growing up.
Mm.
I thought he was probably the best addition to the show out of all the judges that they had, and that's my personal opinion.
Mhm.
I think also Martin Margiela, because I've always appreciated the fact that he had the audacity to show up, but not, he just wanted it to be about the clothes and his
Right.
presentation. He didn't want to make notoriety for himself. He didn't want to be this grand personality versus, someone like Johnny Galliano. No, no shade to him, but he wanted it all to be about him. And Margiela is just kind of like, listen, I'm going to be back here. And y'all can just look at what it is that I present to the world, and I'm going to live a private life. I love that about him.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Now, how would you describe your fashion style?
Oh, my fashion style is so interesting because since I'm like maybe 4 or 5 years post grad, I think it has changed a lot. since then.
Mm-hmm.
I think now I'm more so on, I would say my style is more so everyday opulence, but there are times when I
Mm-hmm.
like to be a little more edgy. So it shifts between those two. Everyday, I would say everyday opulence and edginess. Maybe I like a little bit of grunge here and there. So
Mm-hmm.
those two.
Mm. I want to get into as far as anti gatekeepers. So you mentioned as far as anti gatekeepers, there was a lack of gatekeeping. So what is your take on the lack of gatekeeping, and how important is it to gatekeep in the fashion industry? How does it impact sellers and consumers?
Ooh. So I think with social media, honestly, I think we have seen what not gatekeeping. I mean, there's a lot of knowledge that's come from social media that we've been able to benefit from in a lot of ways, which I do appreciate. But some things have been made to the available to the general public that were never meant to be made
Hmm.
widely available to everyone, and now
Right.
no one has access to it. So it's kind of like some things, if we make it accessible to everyone, then it's no longer accessible to anyone. And so it's like a circular thing that keeps happening. So I think we need to gatekeep what makes sense. Like if you know, like if you're a girl and you know like a vintage shop on the low that sells really good pieces and they don't sell them for a lot, but they're a mom and pop shop, it wouldn't make sense to just make a TikTok to your platform of 100K followers and then everybody's rushing to this place and now they don't have anything. And now that it's going to be filled with stuff from Sheen and all of that. So I think it has to make sense what we gatekeep. But like, I mean, your Fashion Nova jeans, don't gatekeep those, like because they're easily findable, so it doesn't really make sense. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I do understand the whole thing as far as like sharing knowledge and things like that, but I do understand
Mm-hmm.
where your point is to gatekeep certain things. Not everything has to be shared. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? What manufacturer you use and whatever it is, because
Mm-hmm.
then it becomes accessible to everybody. And
Yep.
there isn't like an exclusivity. And that's the thing with like the fashion industry now. It's like, I mean, there's no exclusivity there, like the I have this, you don't, or it's like a limited edition. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really the thing with that with fashion now.
Yeah, I agree. And like I mentioned in my video about like you mentioned manufacturers, business owners, like if I'm just getting my feet off the ground with a business and like I have an apparel business and you want to know all the places that I get my shirts made and my trims and all of that thing that like I then have to find other ways to compete against you. So I don't think we should be criticizing people for gatekeeping certain things that
Right.
make them stand out because the whole point of the business is to offer something to the free market that
Right.
no one else is offering. So yeah.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I want to also push forward and talk about Ajahn, like how you've mentioned earlier, how Ajahn is one of your inspirations, one of my inspirations as well. So definitely Ajahn was the most prominent figure in fashion and in fashion journalism. He mentioned in interviews the importance of internship and mentorship. And when he was first starting his career, he was the protege of Diana Vreeland. So he studied under Diana Vreeland, John Fairchild as far as fashion journalism. So in a TikTok video, you mentioned about the lack of proteges in the fashion industry. How important is it for the fashion industry to have proteges?
Yeah, I think it's something that needs to come back, honestly.
Agreed.
But I think with the corporate structure, the way fashion is now, it's largely corporate, and I know that because I've been working just a couple years now in the fashion industry, and it's so corporate. So
Hmm.
there's like, I don't know the word for it, but when you don't know the person above you and so on and so forth, like it kind of gets lost.
Hmm.
So I think I don't know what that would look like bringing that back exactly with maybe not the biggest fashion houses. Maybe they can't do that, but maybe on the local level, uh, designers that are well known in their communities, their local communities, being able to mentor proteges and make them up to be because I think that's what we saw a lot in the 50s and 60s with Dior. Like they all cared about the next generation. Now it's like
Hmm.
do it yourself. And I understand we
Yeah.
have more information now to be able to learn things, YouTube University, right?
Oh, right.
But I think it still doesn't compare to having someone actually mentor you and show you the ins and outs of the business.
Yeah, right, exactly, absolutely. So this month, specifically this week, marked the second anniversary of Ajahn Tali's passing. In your perspective, what is your take as far as Ajahn Tali's legacy and his impact in the fashion industry?
I really adore Andre. I really do. I think he was one of the greatest minds that fashion has seen. So his legacy is one that a lot of people can reflect on and take a lot of good from it. And the way he just cared about beauty and clothes, like it, I always talk about how in fashion, it's important to, it can't just be about money. And of course, money is important because you need money to make clothes.
Right, right.
But if that's all you care about is the quick buck, and it's going to show
Hmm.
in the
Yeah.
clothing that you produce. And Andre, he just cared about the details. He
Hmm.
knew what he was talking about. He was well studied. He knew fabrics. He knew what he was talking about, and it showed, and he
Exactly.
had an appreciation for the craft of fashion. And I that's something that I want to continue on.
Yeah, absolutely same here because the thing is with Ajahn Tally, like he was a scholar. He knew his stuff.
Hmm.
He was on the top of his game. And the thing is, what was so unfortunate is that, the stuff that he had to deal with, including the
Hmm.
racism in fashion, the rug being pulled from under him, you know what I mean? Being reminded that he was black. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And the thing is that, they wouldn't the thing that we understand and we can relate to being black is the thing is you can reach to a certain level. They don't want you to get too high. Once you get
Yeah.
super high and things like that, they ain't trying to, let you go past, the ceiling and stuff, and they'll just find a way to drag you down. And that's the thing that
Yeah.
we deal with on a daily basis as black people, and that's what Andre dealt with in the fashion industry. You know what I mean? And he's made a monumental impact. And he's from Washington D.C. like I am. I'm, born in D.C. He was born in D.C. And just the people that he was around, he was good friends with Paula Wallace, who was the founder president at SCAD, the school that I went
Hmm.
to.
Yep.
He was also good friends with Oscar De La Renta, DVF, and
Hmm.
and many other people. So he knew a lot of designers. He was putting out black designers. He mentored Mimi Plange, who was a black designer. He was also helping black models get out there. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? And he's made such a very huge impact, for a lot of people.
Absolutely, I agree. And like I said, I just want that to continue. I want to see that amongst the new generation of black designers that we have today as well,
Mm.
and editors.
Yeah, absolutely right. Exactly. I want to get into as far as the fashion industry, as far as black designers. So we see an increase of black designers as Laquan Smith, Brendan Blackwood, Durdu, which is a mother daughter duo. They're fashion designers. They have their own fashion brand called Durdu. Mimi Planche, who's a fashion designer. Telfar Clemens, Heron Preston, etc. So, what is your perspective on black people's impact in the fashion industry, and what's your take on the increase of black designers?
I think I'm excited about it. I think black designers, of course, bring a unique perspective and approach to fashion. Like Telfar, his marketing is always like so genius, and
Right.
the difference is because I've seen like especially since 2020 with the George Floyd aftermath, how companies have tried to market, quote unquote, market to black people, and it
Right.
just falls short every time. And then you have Telfar Clemens, who the marketing just hits
Yeah.
because there's actually relatability there. There's actually understanding there, and it's coming from a genuine place of like, I understand the culture, So I think it has to make sense with
Mhm.
the culture. And I think I'm excited to see what more of the black designers bring because all of them are coming from different walks of life. And so they are also representing the fact that the culture isn't a monolith either.
Yeah, absolutely. Black culture has really made a significant impact in the fashion industry. And the thing is that Black American culture, especially with hip hop culture, with the bucket hats and
Yep.
the boots, the baggy jeans, the urban wear, like
Mm-hmm.
urban wear slash streetwear came from the hood.
Yep.
They came from the lack. It came from the lack of resources. And the thing is that the fashion industry doesn't really credit the mass significance of our culture. Designers like Ann Lowe,
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth
Yeah.
Keckley, you know what I'm
Yep.
saying? So is definitely our culture has made a very big impact in the fashion industry.
Yeah, and I encourage anybody to read Elizabeth Keckley's memoir as well, just to see what it was like being a black dressmaker at her time as well. I highly encourage to read her autobiography. It's good.
Yeah, and speaking of that, but what are some things that you've learned about Elizabeth Keckley as far as her impact in the fashion industry?
I think she she was very close with the Lincolns. She was very close with them. So seeing the Lincolns through her eyes versus not being what I don't know, 7 or 8 generations removed and looking at it through the lens of it seems like a lot of political propaganda, whether it's from either side.
Right.
Um, so I think it was to see the perspective of a black woman in the Lincolns and how what it was like for her to work, and she was an entrepreneur and she had employees. So that was groundbreaking for a woman of her stature and race at that time. So I
Mhm.
that's one thing that I learned about her that I appreciated, and just her grit and her tenacity, and also an insight into what it was like right after the Civil War. That I appreciated because she gave us clarity on like this is the real tea of like the Civil War ending and all of the
Mhm.
slaves just not really knowing what to do with their lives. That was the real of it because I think a lot of people think that they kind of just immediately transitioned into a better life, but that
Right.
wasn't really the case. A lot of them were stuck and they didn't really know what to do. So
Yeah, I want to also push forward and talk about your personal experiences regarding being in the fashion industry. So tell us about your personal experiences working in the fashion industry, and what were some of the things that you learned as far as how to navigate the fashion industry?
um, my fashion industry experience so far has been interesting. I have mainly worked in apparel production and product development. That's been my space. So,
Hmm.
working a lot with manufacturers and getting all of the details that go into getting the garment actually produced,
Right.
which you see the margins, you see the details of the trims and the approval process that all the stuff that it takes just to get one piece of clothing made. It has given
Hmm.
me so much clarity and insight to that, and also cost and how
Hmm.
you constantly have to negotiate things in order for you to be within the right margins. Which
Right.
I've noticed that um, that has been kind of like the missing link with a lot of designers in the past. It's like they'll want to spend all this money on the most gorgeous fabrics, and then
Hmm.
eventually they'll have to find lenders, and it's because they didn't consider the part where you have to work within a certain margin in order for you to profit.
Right.
So,
I want to also get into as far as AI in fashion. So, what is your take on AI and how it's impacting the fashion industry?
I was actually playing with ChatGPT last night and seeing if it could produce and a runway review for me, like in the voice of a prominent editor, and it actually did pretty well. So that's
Mm,
kind of scary. I'm actually gonna I'm gonna post a video on that. But yeah, that's actually kind of scary in terms of like journalism, which
right.
is a very important part of the industry that should be protected and honored. However, I think when it comes to craftsmanship, I don't worry about it so much in that regard because
Hmm.
it won't never be able to replace couture, or I think it can be a tool. Like I forget the girl's name, but she hand beads like little handbags. Like
Mm,
AI could never touch her.
right.
There could never like that girl, her skill is for her to figure out a business plan, a business model, how much to
Right.
charge for what she makes. So I think it could be a tool in some ways in the fashion industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing with AI, you got Mid Journey. I like some of the pages where they do like conceptual fashion, like
Yeah.
conceptual couture, conceptual sneakers. That's really really
Hmm.
cool to really see. But definitely, I could definitely agree where AI is never going to replace the human mind or human creativity. It's just not.
Absolutely.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So you need that hand craftsmanship. That's what makes it more authentic rather than a robot. You know.
Yeah. Like in images, artwork, I think I've seen some pretty good AI artwork. I'm not gonna lie, but it does kind of fail sometimes because I've played with images as well with AI, and like sometimes they'll have like three fingers and things like that. So it's,
Right.
I don't know, maybe if it gets perfected enough, it could. I don't know. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, right, exactly. Now, if you had a top five list of your favorite fashion designers, who would they be and why?
Top five, I would say Alexander McQueen, Martin Margiela. I would say hmm, Alexander McQueen, Martin Margiela. I love Pierre Moss, honestly, even though there's been a lot of issues with the brand there, but I think he's been killer.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I would say Virgil Abloh.
Mm-hmm.
So that's four. That puts me at four, right? And I need
Yes.
one more. One more. I would say Gianni Versace.
Mm. And
Yeah,
why?
those would be my top five. I would say, oh, you want me to go through each one?
Yes.
Okay, so I would say McQueen because I would say Alexander McQueen because the way his approach to design, I think he brought a lot of, even though he mixed grotesque with avant-garde, I think he did it in a way that really pushed fashion forward in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I think his ideas were just genius, like doing the thing with the, I forget her name. I'm sorry, I'm blanking. But the spray paint on the dress, which has
Mm-hmm.
kind of been replicated, um, that's up for debate. But I think he was a genius. Honestly, he was a genius. I
Mm-hmm.
wish I had gone to his exhibit at the Met, but I was not living here at the time in order to go.
Mm-hmm.
But that's Alexander McQueen, and I would say, what did I say after that?
Mar
I'm
Margiela.
sorry. Martin Margiela, yes, and I explained his anonymity. And also, I think he has brought some really good things to design as well. Just doing things inside out, really genius for the time that he was working in. So I think that's been really cool to see him, see his impact on fashion in the way that it was.
Mm-hmm.
And now he also was creative director at Hermes for a time.
Mm.
Yeah, so yeah, pretty good work there. Gianni Versace, I would say, the glamour, the opulence, the sexiness that came from his runway shows. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he was just, oh my gosh, he just gave us so many things to put on our Pinterest boards.
All right.
Yeah, and it was just, he made beautiful, beautiful garments. And I remember seeing like some of the ads in magazines when I was younger of like Naomi Campbell and all these other models, and he really like morphed the '90s era into what it is and how we can remember it today.
Mm-hmm.
And Pierre Moss, I explained, I love Pierre Moss because I feel like he's a trailblazer,
Mm-hmm.
definitely a trailblazer in his approach to design and merging it with the culture. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I feel like I'm missing one more person.
I think it was. I forgot who the other person was. You said.
Well, that's okay. Maybe I'll come back to it when I remember.
Yeah, I would say my top five is of course Alexander McQueen. You know,
Hmm.
like how you said, like he's genius as far as design, and like yeah, I can feel like that grotesque, that couture, type of
Hmm.
feel, and I love like the costuminess of
Yeah,
what he designed. His stuff is really really amazing. Number two would be Elsa Scaparelli.
yeah,
I love the consistency in terms of the fashion shows with the gold accents,
yes.
the sophistication, the classiness, the sexiness. Another designer I like is also who would I say? Terry Mugler. Mugler especially in
That's what I
the
should have said in my top five. Terry McGuire. Oh my gosh.
yeah, Mugler like in the 90s, like his fashions were
Hmm.
amazing fashion shows. They were like spectacles and there's like
Yeah,
performances and out the box, garments. His approach to
hour
design
long.
was really, really cool.
Yeah.
I think I seen one fashion show and James Brown was performing in his fashion show. So that was really, really cool to see
Really?
that. Yeah.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah. It was like really, really cool. It was like in the 90s. Um Another designer I would say is Brandon Blackwood. I like what
Yes.
he stands for. I like some of his fashion. I like the fur coats that he
Yeah.
did. Like those are really, really cool. His
Gorgeous.
handbags,
Hmm.
especially the anti-systemic racism handbag. That's what really set him on the map
Yeah.
as far as his brand. Because it was in the wake of George Floyd and
Hmm.
the stuff that Black people as a whole were going through here in America. So yeah, so definitely Brandon Blackwood. I would say my fifth person, I would say, really is Versace. Like how you said, like Versace. I like the consistency with their fashion shows,
Yeah.
because it's like the elegance, the sexiness, the Miami beach vibes, and things like
Yeah.
that. So those are my top five.
I love your top five. Yeah, I definitely should have put Mugler in mine because I would say him and Gianni Versace gave us the 90s supermodel obsession. They gave it to us. We wouldn't have it without them.
Yeah, right, absolutely. And another designer too that I really like is also Garth Pugh. Garth Pugh's work is very, very cool. I love like
Yeah, it's very
it has that
talented.
grotesqueness, but it has like that gothy, playing with shape. Saying that with
Yeah.
not same thing, but another designer is Iris Van Herpen. Her stuff is really,
Yes.
really cool.
Yes.
3D printing. She makes very, very cool garments. Another designer I would say is Victor and Rolf.
Yes.
They do very, very cool statement pieces, very haute couture, very, very out the
Hmm.
box. So yeah, so there are designers that, I gravitate towards more so like the out the box, more so into getting in touch with their culture, like with Pierre Moss and other
Hmm.
Black designers. Harold Preston. I like his approach
Yeah.
to streetwear.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's a
Completely.
lot of cool designers out there.
Yeah. I agree. And I love Iris Van Herpen. I really do. I would like to see her venture into ready wear and see what that looks like. So I would love to see that from her.
Yeah, yeah, right. Agreed, definitely. So I want to get into as far as 5 years from now. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years from now?
In 5 years, one of the things that I have in mind is this year to have a YouTube channel set up and
Hmm.
fully functioning, starting it. So in 5 years, I would hope that I have some reached a milestone. I don't know, maybe 250K followers. I don't know if that's too ambitious, something like that. I hope to do video essays, really deep dives on my channel, have people on to
Hmm.
speak. Also, I hope to um, I really hope to, I don't know, I think I want to start doing more in terms of my, like showcasing my actual personal style as well. So
Hmm.
that's another goal that I hope to see in the next 5 years. So yeah, maybe a blog. I don't like to write. I just like to talk.
Yeah,
So
right.
maybe a blog or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, that'd be really, really cool. Last but not least, where can people find you on social media? And how can people support you and your content?
Yes, so support me on TikTok at the High Fashion Fan. Follow me on there. I do have my YouTube officially dedicated to my username, so you can still follow me on my YouTube, the High Fashion Fan, and it will come later this year. And I will try to get the first video uploaded by the end of the year, so you can pre-support me in that.
That's really, really cool. Well, thank you so much, Victoria, for jumping on the show. I love what you're doing as far as, giving your take as far as fashion. Also talking about Black fashion designers, different runway shows and things of that nature. So that's how I first ran into you, was through TikTok and what you were talking about as far as your perspective. So I really enjoyed our conversation about fashion. I like how we have that in common. We're into fashion and
Yeah.
things of that nature. So, we both love Leon Talley as
Yes.
well. So just thank you so much again.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye
Yes,
bye.
thank you so much. Take care. Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to click the bells for notifications. Also, follow me on social media platforms and be on the lookout for more interviews involving fashion, style, and fashion history. Take care and stay stylish. Bye bye.